everyone. Good morning. Happy Sabbath. My name is Caeyenne Brown, and here with me is Dr. Pastor Daniel Honore, President of the Northeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Welcome, Dr. Honore. Nice having you on set with us today.
Thank you, Shane. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you and share our experiences here as Black Seventh-day Adventists.
Black History Month is important because it creates awareness for all. We should always celebrate the accomplishments of Black people. However, in February, we seize the opportunity to honor the often neglected Black Americans amongst us. So it's an honor to have Dr. Honore with us sharing his experience as a Black Seventh-day Adventist and a Black man in America. So, Dr. Honore, what is the significance of Black History Month to you, first as a person and secondly as a Seventh-day Adventist?
As a person, it's very affirming to see that we are being affirmed when we study and look at our own history. As Blacks living in this country, the images of ourselves are not always affirming or positive. I remember as a little boy growing up maybe in the Bronx having images. When I would see myself, I would envision myself as a little white boy with blue eyes and blonde hair. So the images are not always affirming. It's a time when we pause to reflect on what we've contributed to the development of this nation and what it means for us as a people to move forward and succeed despite all of the obstacles that have been placed in our way for hundreds of years. As a Seventh-day Adventist, I take this moment to reflect also on our history. And it's a very special year for us in Northeastern because we're celebrating 75 years of existence as a predominantly Black conference here in this nation. So we pause to reflect. Northeastern was born as a result of racism in America. In 1944, one of our members from what is now the Linden Church was denied admission to a hospital in Washington, an Adventist hospital, on the basis of color. Her name was Lucy Baird, and shortly after being refused admission, she was shipped to the Freedmen Hospital in Washington, which is now Howard University Hospital. But her death a few weeks later really was the lightning rod that propelled the creation of Black conferences when our Black leadership demanded from the General Conference full integration into the church. The General Conference came back and said, we can't do that, but here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to let you have your own conferences. And so Northeastern was established on January 1, 1945, to reach the Black masses of the Northeast. We started out with 2,000 members in 1945, and today we have 60,000 members and over 200 congregations. So God has been good to us and has blessed us as a Black people in the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
That's incredible. And it's ironic that you mentioned that we've been celebrating 75 years because I get that there is somewhat a feeling of hopelessness amongst Black Adventists when it relates to the world church on a whole. Do you think that the church has done a lot to somewhat pacify the feelings of hopelessness, or do you think that more can be done?
I believe that more can be done. However, you can never wait for somebody to empower you. You have to fight and empower yourself. You have to consider that today there are more Black Seventh-day Adventists in the world than white Seventh-day Adventists. We, here in the United States, the regional conferences have a membership of about 350,000. And then there are a lot of Blacks now in state conferences that used to be referred to as white conferences. Greater New York is majority minority now. And all up and down the East Coast, you have large memberships. But not only that, we have in Africa 3 divisions that have about 8 million members. So while the church in the white countries is slowly diminishing, even dying in some places, it's bustling in Inter-America, in the Caribbean, and Africa. And so it's only a matter of time before you see more Black faces leading at the world level.
That's good, and that leads into my next question, because I have that the world church has made inroads in having diverse membership, but do you think that we're very inclusive as a church, as a movement?
We are. And you see that when you attend a general conference session, which I plan to attend later this year. We are in over 190 countries, 21 million believers of every shade, every complexion, almost every language here in the Northeastern language. And in the Northeastern Conference, we have about 10 language groups.
Interesting.
And so it's a very diverse church. In North America, the church is about 33% white, 35% black, about 20% Latino, and 10% Asian. So it's one of the most diverse churches. When you look at Pew Research Center online, you'll find that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is one of the most diverse denominations in this country.
That's very good to know. This was taken directly from the NAD's website. It says, as Adventists, we believe that God is concerned with the quality of human life. Do you believe that there are some systems within the world church that directly or indirectly diminish our quality of life as a unit?
There may not be deliberately, but there may be unintentionally. And one of the aspects where you see that is sometimes perhaps with the Eurocentric approach, where people have the notion that if it comes from Europe, it's fine.
Right.
If it comes from Africa or other places, it's not as good. But that's really mental colonialism, and all of us need to free ourselves from the bondage of somebody colonizing our minds.
Right. That's definitely true. And I do want to make note that there are, as you mentioned, lots of minority people within our conference and also the division, which is North American Division. Without stomping on biblical principles, do you think that we have a hard time accommodating those with varying methods of worship because it does not fit within our Eurocentric
Yes.
confines of what is considered acceptable worship style?
Yes. We mentioned that briefly, that some people have just bought wholesale into the concept that unless it comes from Europe, unless it's classical music on the pipe organ from Europe, it cannot be legitimate. God cannot find pleasure in it. Yet God is a God of diversity. He created flowers in many colors and many styles and many sizes. He created the fish in many colors. He created the birds. God is a God of variety. So I don't think there's only one way that pleases him. And we should not be slave to the notion that there's one superior culture. Among the thousands of cultures on earth, there's only one that pleases God. I don't believe that.
Right. I agree, because I do not buy into that notion at all. So how do you think that Black Adventists within our world church can remain hopeful and faithful that despite our belief system being somewhat Eurocentric, that we still can remain, I'd say, faithful to what God has called us to be as a unique people?
We have to remember that the fundamental message, the three angels' message that we preach and that we boast about, begins with an angel flying in the midst of heaven, having an everlasting gospel that is preached to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. So from its foundation, our message has diversity and inclusiveness for every culture, every person, every race, every nationality, every language on earth. And the other thing is we cannot beat up ourselves. Sometimes the results of colonialism is not that the majority culture is oppressing you, is that you are oppressing each other in your own culture, beating up each other over nonsense, trying to see who can be most like the dominant culture as opposed to just being authentic and being the person God created you to be.
Right. So how do you think that the church on a whole can somewhat create an environment where young people feel like they belong, especially young Black youth feeling that they belong to this church and want to have that sense of ownership of a movement that they're a part of?
I'm going to sound very radical because I sat where you're sitting some 30 years ago. And my understanding is you don't wait for people to give you something. You need to stop waiting for the church to take us in. It's your church, take it. Exercise it. Take control. Be part of the decision-making process. Be on the committees. It's one thing to complain that the church is no good, the church doesn't want us, the church doesn't I'm leaving the church. It's another thing to say, well, it's my church. It belongs to me. Nobody can take it from me. And assert yourselves in the church as young people. Get on the committees that make decisions, on the church board, on the nominating committees and conference sessions. Be active participants. Don't fold your arms and then say that the church is not including you. It won't be given to you. You have to take it.
So are you saying that we should somewhat make good trouble, like agitate the status quo? We are going to be a part of this, if that means ruffling some feathers in the process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Every movement on the earth, there's just because it's legal doesn't make it moral. You have to remember slavery was legal, sexism was legal, segregation was legal, Jim Crow was legal until some people went and agitated and fought for justice. God expects us to be people of justice, and so we have to do our part.
Good. So an ideal Sabbath for you celebrating Black History Month, like what would that look like for you?
It has many elements, multidimensional. It has looking at history, looking at biblical passages about diversity and inclusion. I've been preaching this month Black history in different churches. It includes diversity, people in their national costumes from their culture being affirmed and celebrated. It includes a culinary element of tasting the different dishes from the different nations, an international day. But at the end of the day, we highlight these different cultures not because we want one of them to be superior of the other, but we want to become united as a people and saying, despite of human weakness, we are united from many lands, many colors, many cultures, but we celebrate our unity in Christ.
And I'm sure that's what God expects of us too. We're coming from all nations, different tongues, different kindreds of people, coming together and just being a part of his melting pot and just being one people together. So thank you so much, Dr. Honore, for agreeing to do this interview with us on this last Sabbath of Black History Month 2020. Thank you.
It is a pleasure, and thank you for the outstanding work you're doing to keep our young people informed. God bless you.
Thank you.